Hello and welcome along to Betting Weekly WTA. It's a big week of tennis action across the men's and the women's tour with the second major of 2024, the French Open at Roland-Garros over in Paris. And who better to join me than an in-form WTA handicapper for Because We Win, Rory Jiwani. Rory, how are you, sir? You all good?
I'm all right. I've actually been a bit under the weather, but...
Oh, you don't? Hang on a minute. Hang on.
Buoyed by the performances of my two picks from last week.
Listen, don't you turn into Sean Calvert. I cannot start a podcast without Sean Calvert telling me about his sore throat, his cough, his hypothermia, whatever illness he has, right? So don't you now turn into him. I mean, everybody, this is a tennis show, not a health show. And you're going to come on Tuesday. You're sitting in Spain. The weather's fantastic. No ailments. Now you turn into Sean Calvert. Roy Jiwani is the new Sean Calvert. Anyway, yes, you said you're looking quite good. I mean, you're not under the weather. I'm joking aside. Hopefully you feel a bit better. But the results today might feel you a bit better. Both of your picks last week on WTA show. Peyton Stearns and Madison Keys through to the finals today in Rabat and Strasbourg, and hopefully we can get at least one of them over the line. Both of them are underdogs though. Both of them are dogs today, which is a bit of a disappointment, but let's fingers crossed we can get at least one of them. But anyway, we've got the place money in the bag, and we come into the French Open in a bit of form and with some money in our pockets.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? It's been a bit of a wait, but as you mentioned, they're both underdogs. I mean, Madison Keys is plus 130 against Daniel Collins, who continues in amazing form. And I mean, this should be an interesting final because I think on clay this season, Keys has only lost to Iga Swiatek twice, and Lyudmila Samsonova was having a really good week, but Keys demolished her in the semi-finals. So that's pleasing to see ahead of the Collins final in Rabat. I don't know how Stearns has made it through, frankly. I mean, it's Houdini escapades. In the quarterfinal, she was 5-love down and match point down.
I actually bet Bronzetti in that match. I actually bet her in that match. I couldn't believe it. I'm glad, obviously, for you, but for me, I was absolutely cursing myself. I couldn't believe that.
I mean, Stearns is funny, though, because I've seen a couple of her matches this week. I think 3 of her matches this week, and she's got the game, and she's got, it's just occasionally she just makes some really untimely, unforced errors, and she's been running around to her forehand, and she often misses that. And if she doesn't miss it, if she gets it in the court, she's so out of position for the next shot. But she's made it through. She's playing Maya Sherif, who is in fantastic form. Hasn't dropped a set. Won 6-love 6-1 yesterday against the Russian Rakhimova. So Stearns is a heavy underdog there. But yeah, as you say, we've got the place money, and we'll just hope for a bit more. I mean, Keys, as the odds suggest, Keys has the slightly better chance. But no, it's good to get a couple into the final.
Yep, couple into the final. But that's all the action we'll be covering today. But by the time this podcast will drop, we will know our fate on those. And obviously, it's all about next week. It's all about Sunday start of the French Open, the second major of the year, as I said. One thing I must say before we leave last week behind, when you did mention your tips, Peyton Stearns and Madison Keys, I sort of raised my eyebrows and say, you're going to bet 2 Americans on the European hardcore clay court. What do I know? Anyway, well done, Rory. Hopefully we can get at least one of them home and add to our winnings for the week. Okay, let's all about winnings for next week now. That's what we're going to concentrate on now. We're going to concentrate on where we're going to make the money. The draw was made on Thursday. Looking at the draw, there are some very difficult quarters. I think Q4 is really, really tough. Iga Swiatek obviously is the tournament favourite. We're going to come on to the odds in a little while. But before we go on, break down the draw and we break down the bracket and we look at the odds, a lot of people will come onto this show for the first time. We're getting more and more subscribers on the YouTube channel, which is great. Thank you very much for coming along. People are watching the show for the very first time, and a lot of people start having their first few bets at a major. So the French Open may see some new people to tennis. Explain to us a little bit about what to expect over the next couple of weeks, the difference between clay and the traditional hard courts, what people stateside would see, and what trends are we going to look for when we're going to find the winner of the French Open.
Well, the French Open is obviously, as you say, it's the only clay court event of the 4 slams. It's traditionally plays slow. I mean, clay is the slowest surface. The ball bounces quite high, and you're used to seeing longer rallies. But I mean, the bigger servers can get cheap points, although the French Open did play very slow last year. It usually goes to a clay court specialist. I mean, you can go back several years. I remember in the men's game, Gustavo Kuerten couldn't do anything on any other surface, but I think he won 3 French Opens. And so really, clay court specialists are the way to go. Now, the clay court season is so short these days, and especially in the women's tour, with 2 of the tournaments in what I would call not proper clay conditions. You've got Stuttgart at the start of the clay court swing, which is indoors, so it's quicker, and Madrid, which is at altitude, so that's also quicker. So you don't get many proper warm-up tournaments for the French. Iga Swiatek has won it 3 out of the last 4 years. She is the very hot favourite, and deservedly so. There aren't that many clay court specialists these days, simply because the tour is based around medium pace or slow medium pace hard courts. They make up the vast majority of the tournaments in the year. But you do have the odd clay court specialist. We've seen the likes of, mentioned Sheriff in Rabat. You have the likes of Sara Sorribes Tormo, and a couple of others who are very capable on their day of causing upsets. I mean, you could throw in someone like Beatrice Haddad-Maia into the mix. She's probably at her best on clay. But there are, as I said, there aren't too many clay. Not like, as in the past, you used to have a lot more clay court specialists. You don't have so many now, simply because it's all predominated towards these slow, medium, hard courts.
So that's a little bit of a breakdown. What are the weather conditions going to be like? Is it going to be a quick French Open? Is it going to be a slow French Open? The qualifying has been going on. Have you kept a close eye across qualification?
Yeah, I've kept a bit of an eye. It's been slow. And the weather forecast isn't great for the week ahead. Under 20 degrees Celsius for most of the first week. So that's mid-60s Fahrenheit. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday could be near washout. A lot of rain due, particularly on the Thursday. And Roland-Garros last year played as slow as any other clay court tournament statistically on the women's tour. The service hold percentage was 58.4. First serve percentage won was 59, so that's really slow. And Rabat is actually playing a bit slower than that this week, whereas Strasbourg is a fair bit quicker. So, you know, given the weather forecast, I'm expecting these to be slow, attritional conditions, long rallies being the order of the day.
It was funny because we said it was very slow last year. It was very hot last year because I was there last year. It was absolutely sweltering. So the weather usually has a sort of impact on the court. So last year when it hot, you would expect it to be faster, and this it was slower. And this year it's going to be wet and damp, which is probably traditional kind of clay court grind. So you're going to, a certain type of player might excel here. And let's have a look at the draw, and let's have a look at the breakdown of the brackets. There's obviously 4 quarters, and the winners of each quarter get through to the semi-finals. Without going into heavy detail on all of the players, if this tournament went to the seedings, then we don't expect it to go to the seedings because some of these players aren't capable of making that far because they're not really that great on the clay courts. Iga Swiatek is the number 1 seed, and she is a 3 times winner, as Rory said. She's won it 2 times on the spin, and she's looking to win it 3 successive times, become the first player since Justine Henin to do that. She's a number 1 seed, and she'll be scheduled to play Vondrousova in the quarterfinals. I'd be actually amazed if Vondrousova made the quarterfinals. In Vondrousova's section, there's Collins and Kostyuk as well, which could be dangerous. You would fancy those to beat the Wimbledon champion there. So Swiatek against Vondrousova is the way it's scheduled, but I doubt it very much. In Q2, you're looking at Coco Gauff against Ons Jabeur, but obviously there's Ostapenka in there. She's a 2017 champion here as well. That is in Q2, so it's scheduled to be Gauff against Jabeur. In Q3, Kenwin Zheng, the runner-up in Australia, she will play Rybakina. And I think out of all the quarters, we'll come on to your thoughts here, Rory. I think Q3 is the weakest by some way, but could you trust Rybakina? And that's the question. So you may be some value in that Q3. And Q4, well, this is impossible. Zachary, the Greek girl, is in there. She will play Sabalenka, but along the route, you've got Miran Dre, you've got Stearns, you've got Kazakina, you've got Azarenka, you've got Noskova, you've got Keys, you've got Navone, you've got Paula Badosa, Putinetseva. I mean, it's loaded, absolutely loaded, that section. So I think that Q4 is really, really difficult, and I think a lot of people will look at that bottom and think we could have a rematch. It's been the final consistently, Swiatek against Sabalenka, but I think Sabalenka is very, very hard. We all know about Swiatek. We'll come on to the odds and how the bookies or how BetRivers see this tournament going. But what's your first impressions of that draw?
Yeah, the third quarter is the most open, certainly. I mean, Rybakina, she's the favourite to come through it, but yeah, we've still got doubts over her fitness and her durability. And remember last year she pulled out before her third round match against Sara Sorribes Tormo. She pulled out of Rome just before Rome. She played a lot of tennis in the first part of the year. Her two clay court tournaments this year have been Stuttgart, which she won, and Madrid, where she lost an epic semi to Sabalenka. As I said, I wouldn't call those proper clay tournaments, with Stuttgart being indoors, Madrid being at altitude. They're a lot quicker. So she's going to find things tougher at Roland-Garros. They're going to be more drawn-out rallies. It won't be so easy to hit winners. So that would be my sort of, first impression. My second impression is it's really going to be hard to get Iga Swiatek beat. She's been handed a pretty nice draw. She'll probably double bagel Liu Jianjian in round one. Then she'll face Naomi Osaka or Bronzetti in round two. Maria Bauskova or Veronika Kudermetova in round three. Possibly Anastasia Potapova in round four. And then you're looking at either Collins or Vandrousova in the quarterfinals. I mean, I think Collins could give her a game, but she won't beat her on clay, I don't think. Then it's Coco Gauff or Beatrice Haddad-Maia or possibly Jabeur or Stepenko in the semis. And then possibly Sabalenka in the final. I just can't see her being beaten. I'm not going to tip her at minus 150. That's not my sort of price. But I just can't see her being beaten here. I think she's excelled on most surfaces, but particularly on clay. She won Madrid, she won Rome. It's going to be very hard to see anyone beating her here in Paris.
Yeah, I mean, she has been bet quite heavily over the last couple of weeks or so. She's been dominant on the clay court scene, and she is the woman to beat. I mean, let's have a look at the outright market. This is the prices with BetRivers to win the French Open on the women's side of it. Iga Swiatek minus 150. I mean, you could see her become minus $2 after round one, because there's going to be names falling out of this draw on round one, and Swiatek's going to come through. The one thing before we break down the draw, break down the prices, it used to be that the women's draw was the interesting one. The men's draw was dominated by Nadal. At Wimbledon we had Federer, then we had Djokovic winning everything, then we had Alcaraz as well, and The men's draw is very, very interesting, because you can make a case for 10 players, and Sean Calver's actually picked 201 shots to win it, which is unheard of from the men's draw. Now the women's draw is pretty much dominated by Iga Swiatek. Before we talk about this one, do you think that she can be all conquering on all surfaces series? Do you think that's enough for her, or do you think there's going to be do you think she's got a lot to do to change to win Wimbledon and become a Grand Slam champion? All of them.
Wimbledon's going to be the issue. I mean, she hasn't played that much grass court tennis. Like with clay, I mentioned earlier, there isn't much of a clay season. There's not much of a grass season anymore, and it's just not a surface that plays to her strengths. The low bounce doesn't help her forehand. She's got a very exaggerated forehand, if you like. So with the low bounce, that doesn't help that at all. I'd be very inclined to look elsewhere for Wimbledon. I still think Rybakina's the woman to beat at Wimbledon. Yeah. But when it comes to clay courts and when it comes to slow hard courts, she is the best out there. I mean, she has been beaten this season, don't get me wrong, but she's fairly dominant in those conditions.
Yep, and she's dominating the betting, as we said. She's minus 150 with BetRivers to win her third successive French Open title. Aryna Sabalenka, the Australian Open champion, is $5. She's always been the bridesmaid to Swiatek in the bigger clay events this year, but that Q4 is so difficult. I couldn't bet her at the moment, that section. I think a lot of people would look at her as the professional play, because obviously BetRivers will offer each way on this market, and you look at it and think, well, she could get to the to the final. But I would be very wary to take on. It's a half 1-2 BetRivers, which is very well done to them to go a half 1-2 because of a minus 150 favourite. So I think a lot of professional bettors would be looking at Sabalenka. $5 Sabalenka. Coco Gauff is $8. I mean, she's going to play Swiatek in the semi-final. We know what happens there. Swiatek always beats Coco Gauff. She beat her in the final very, very easy a couple of years ago as well. Danielle Collins at 22-1, doing wonders. Won Miami, doing really, really well. Obviously up against Madison Keys in the final in Strasbourg today. But that, at her age, to come straight from Strasbourg winning, I don't know if that's a good preparation or not. I'm not sure. But 22-1, you wouldn't expect her to do well on clay. Sakari at 25-1, but she's in Q4. Kenwen Zheng, 30. Mira Andreeva, not even seeded in Q4, 33. Helena Ostapenko could be anything. She's 33-1. Onja Burr struggling with form and fitness. She's 40. Vondrousova, the Wimbledon champion, is 50. Beatrice Haddad-Maia, 60. Azarka, 60. Elena Svitolina at 60. Madison Keys, 80. And Linda Noskova, a player who has beaten Iga Swiatek this year. She's 90. But again, she's in that Q4. That Q4 is absolutely loaded. So then, the professional bettor, and you're looking at people, most people will be betting Iga Swiatek to win this tournament, and rightly so, because she is the girl to beat. But we're here looking at value. We can't do a podcast and say, Iga Swiatek's going to win it, even though we probably think she will. We've got to look for alternatives, and we've probably got to look for each way value. We've probably got to look for someone who could beat her. So if we're not going to pick Iga Swiatek, although we know she's the likely winner, where is the value in this draw, Roy?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the bottom half and try and find the woman to meet Swiatek in the final. Unfortunately, as you say, that Q4 is pretty hard. And Keys and Sheriff, who are obviously in the finals today, they're due to meet in round 2. And whoever wins that would probably face Sabalenka in round 4. I am actually interested in Sheriff just because she's too big a price. She's $500, which is too big, even in the toughest section of the draw. But yeah, $500. I mean, we're looking at almost like lottery tickets here. We're needing a lot to go our way. But, Sheriff at $500 is too much. So I'll be backing her a quarter of a point each way, just because her price is too big. Then you go to the third quarter, which, as we said, looks open. I quite like Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova in that section of the draw. She reached the quarterfinals last year, having not shown too much on clay before that, similar to this year actually. She was a finalist in 2021, of course. She's just won one match out of 4 on clay this season, but her draw doesn't look too bad. Elena Svitolina would be her first real test in round 3, and then Rybakina in round 4. If she got through those, she could go a long way. And I feel almost like my logic for backing Stearns this week in Rabat. She's not shown great deal of form, but she does have the capability of going deep. So I'll have another quarter point each way on Pavlyuchenkova at $200. And in the top section of that third quarter, which is probably the weakest bit of the draw, I think Jasmine Paolini's interesting at $120. Obviously, she won Dubai. She reached the quarters in Stuttgart. I mean, she's never been past round 2 in Paris. But this looks pretty weak section of the draw. Qinwen Zheng is in there. I mean, Zheng's capable on clay. I mean, she's quite comfortable on it. But she faded very tamely to Gauff in Rome. And I wouldn't be that confident about her chances. Paolini would probably face Zheng in round 4, and then it's either Svitolina, Rybakina or Pavlyuchenkova in the quarterfinals, possibly Sabalenka in the semis, and she often gives the world number 2 a bit to think about. So I'll have a third each way quarter point bet on the Italian at $120. There's one other player to mention who isn't quoted because she came through the qualifiers. I mean, she will be quoted if she gets past her first round match, and that's Julia Riera from Argentina. I watched a bit of her on the ITF tour last year, and I was impressed. She's a good, solid clay court player. She's got a decent serve, so she can win cheap points then. She's 21. She's up to a career high 93 in the world, and this will be her first slam main draw. I think she's a player going places. If she gets past Irina Begu in round 1, which is no easy task, as the Romanian's a good clay court player, I'd be tempted to back her. But as I say, these are all Hail Marys. Swiatek almost certainly won't be beaten. Sabalenka should meet her in the final. I mean, she reached the semis last year and lost to Karolina Mukova. We're really hoping for some shocks. It can happen at Roland-Garros. I mean, 2021, Sakkari beats Swiatek in the quarterfinals and then lost to eventual winner Barbara Krejcikova. Pavlyuchenkova defeated Tamara Zidanšek in the other semi-final. I mean, we haven't seen anything of Zidanšek since. So, we could see some shocks, but I very much doubt it.
I like some of these big prices because I think we could get a big finalist. I think Rybakina is definitely opposable in Q3. Paolini looks nice price at 120, but obviously she lost to Sheriff in the second round, and Roma was really poor. I suppose it's very hard for players to play in front of their home crowd. Obviously Paolini's Italian, the Rome crowd want to do well, so that was probably a little pressure on it. There's a lot of players in Q3 that you just wouldn't fancy at all.
No,
on
exactly.
clay. No way. So really, you could get Pavlyuchenkova and Paolini could easily get to the semi-finals. Easy, they could get through that quarter. Not easy. It's going to be hard, but there's a potential route for them to get to the semi-finals. And then hedging is for gardens, not for me. But there's an opportunity for some hedging opportunities if you get a big price through to the semi-finals. And in the bottom half, I just think that it's so tough that Sabalenka at 5-1. And plus 250 to make it through to the final is no value whatsoever. And I know that people will bet it. I know it's a professional play because when you've got a heavy minus money favourite like Swiatek, you want to be on the number 2 seed and the most likely opponent. But I think that's you've got to be very brave to bet at those prices to get through that section, because if the weather changes there and it gets really slow and it's very heavy, not like the clay that we've seen already, I can't see Sabalenka doing much. I think her serve will be nullified, and I'm not sure that she'll come through there. So really interesting.
Rome played pretty quick this year, comparatively. So the conditions should be a fair bit slower at Roland-Garros. So there are definitely things against Sabalenka and Rybakina here.
Yeah, and we're going to go for some big prices. We fully expect Iga Swiatek to win it, and if you want to bet Iga Swiatek to win it, we're not putting you off that, but you got to be a serious bettor. You got to have $150 on to win 100. So if you want to risk that kind of thing, it's entirely up to you. And head to BetRivers and bet Iga Swiatek to win the tournament. We fully expect her to win her third successive. She is the woman to beat. She's the best player in the world by an absolute country mile, and she should win this tournament. But for us, we're going to look for some speculative bets. We can look for some players at very, very nice prices to try to get to the final. And if Iga Swiatek gets beat along the route, then we've got a great chance of winning the title at big prices. It has happened before, very rarely, and that's why you're betting 120s and 200s and 500s. So our 3 picks and our staking plan for the French Open women's title are, Rory?
Yeah, keeping them small, but a quarter of a point each way. Jasmine Paolini at $120, quarter of a point each way. Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova at $200, and a quarter of a point each way. Maya Sheriff at $500, and it's they're massive prices. If one of them gives us a run, we'll be happy with that. It's just you're hoping that one of them puts together a run, and you never, in a slam as well, players find form, like Pavlyuchenkova, as I said, she hasn't shown much form on clay this season, but get a couple of wins under your belt and suddenly you're up and running.
You're going to go look at Vondrousova at Wimbledon.
Yeah,
I mean that was a massive price shock when Vondrousova won last summer. So anything can happen in majors, and the French Open is more. It does offer some shock. So there are our picks. There are outsiders. If Sheriff won I know 500 was a big price given her form, but from the woman that I saw on clay in Dortmund last year, if you told, I'm sorry, Hamburg last year, if you had told me that she was going to win the French Open, I would have locked you up.
Or any tournament. She was terrible tail end of last season and early this season. But I saw her in Madrid, and she beat Kostyuk in Madrid and looked very good. And in Rome she beat Paolini, playing some really good tennis. Probably should have beaten Azarenka in the next round in Rome, and she's been very, very good in Rabat this week. So if you're looking at a clay court player in form, she is one to keep on side, and you can't go wrong backing her at 500-1.
I do think if she does win in Rabat today, which hopefully she doesn't, her odds will half. I think she'll start the tournament around 250, 200-1. So if you want to get the 500-1 on Sheriff, you want to get across to BetRivers now. Rory, thank you very much for your time as always. Good luck today. Good luck today. This is Saturday. Hopefully, this is dropped. We'll have a couple of winners going into the French Open in great form, which is great. And I appreciate your time. Obviously, you're not feeling very well. I can tell in your voice you're struggling a little bit. So thank you very much for your time today. Remember, there's a few ways to follow all the content we have here at the French Open. We have Wimbledon, Euro 2024 soccer tournament, Copa America as well. It's all happening this summer. I thought we were going to have a bit of a break, but we're not. There's no rest for the wicked. Subscribe to Betting Weekly Studios on YouTube. Thank you very much for all the new members, all the new subscriptions that have come along and watched our shows and commented on our shows. Please give us a comment, give us a like, give us a review. We really want to hear from you. Download the podcast, Betting Weekly WTA, and also follow us on our socials. Rory will be giving some pics during the tournament, I'm sure, on our social pages on Instagram and on Twitter at Because We Win. I'm off to the FA Cup final today to watch Manchester United get humiliated against Manchester City, lose by about 5 or 6-0, which would be great fun. And enjoy yourself. Obviously, there's a podcast with myself and Sean Calvert as well, looking at the men's draw. We've done the men's draw markets, which is available now. Have a look at that. Sean has some big price winners. So between us now, between the two of you, you've given us 5 picks on the French Open, 3 men's and 3 women's, and the shortest odds is 100 to 1, and the biggest odds is 500 to 1. So it could be a life-changing.
Just takes one of them, doesn't it? It just takes one of them. But the price tells you.
50. Well, I've been waiting 33 years of wagering for that one pick, but it will come. It will come. Rory, thank you again for your time.
Cheers,
have a great week. Good luck with your bets. Good luck today, everybody. Thanks again for watching, and we'll be back later on in the tournament to give you some updates as and when we progress. Take care.